Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. Hello, my name is Craig Warren. I'm 71 years old, been married almost 53 years, father of 9 and grandpa to a bunch. I'm sort of retired. I retired at 65 to provide full-time care for my wife, who's had some pretty serious health issues. But lately I realized that I needed something to do to keep my mind active. So why not a podcast? I have a lot of experience. I've definitely done a lot of things in my 50 plus years in the workforce. I definitely have a lot of opinions. So what more would I need? I should mention that I've never been a member of a political party. I do not intend to do so. My podcasts do not come from a political place, just from a factual and common sense place. Today's podcast I've titled, Do We Value Human Life Anymore? Or are we just fertilizer? I want to go through that and show you exactly what I mean. For 60,000 years, from the caves of Shanidar to the mounds of the Ohio Valley, humans have agreed on one thing. The body is sacred. We built houses of eternity in Egypt. We held festivals to feed the memory of our fathers. But in the last decade or so, we seem to have entered this great forgetting phase. We've been told that flowers on a grave are a waste, and a grandmother in a bed is a statistic or a drain on society. We are the first generation in human history to look at our ancestors and see a carbon problem instead of a foundation. Evidence from 60,000 years ago showed the Neanderthals burying their dead with medicinal and colorful flowers. This proves reverence, and it predates what we consider civilization. In ancient Egypt, they had tombs as a permanent home for their dead. They believed the body was the anchor for the soul, making preservation a sacred state duty. Here in what is now the United States, the Native American tribes, the Mississippian, the Hopewell cultures, built massive earthen structures, these big mounds, viewing the land as a living witness to their ancestors. In the Roman Empire, they had what they called the Parentalia, a 9-day festival ensuring that the dead were fed and remembered, establishing a legal and moral contract between generations. In the Bible, in Genesis, said that Abraham purchased a cave in, I have no idea how to say it, Machpelah? I don't know, to bury his wife Sarah, emphasizing that even in a foreign land, a permanent and honorable site was required. And of course, we have at the time of Christ, they used bought a tomb or rented a tomb, and they used all kinds of spices, everything to preserve his body. And then Paul, in 1 Thessalonians, verse 4, he refers to the dead as those who sleep, implying they are still present and awaiting a future, not just waste to be recycled. So I want to kind of see if I can give you some information as to how we kind of got here. Because we've moved from this sacred to like a resource or just something to be eliminated. Like I said, we spent 60,000 years remembering, but it only took us 10, 15, 20 years to start to forget how important this is. And then this kind of starts with, there's several, but Paul Ehrlich is one of them. He had this population bomb book and stuff that he wrote. And his idea was the population explosion is an uncontrolled multiplication of people. He referred to us as like a cancerous tumor, and he said we have to cut the cancer out. And we had Ted Turner, billionaire, a few years ago. He suggested that 95% of the world's population should be eliminated. He didn't say it quite in those terms, but exactly what he meant. He said the ideal population for the world is 250 to 300 million people. Yeah, that's enough to take care of the needs of the rich elite. That's what it sounded like to me. Then we have this Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum. It says the focus on the fourth industrial revolution often frames humans as biological data points that must be integrated into a more efficient digital and economic system. We're not people, we're data points. This reset narrative often suggests that in a high-tech future, many people, the peons mostly, us, may become economically irrelevant. If AI and robots do the work, the upper crust, the top 1%ers or whatever, no longer needs a large labor class, making the overpopulation of the poor people a security risk rather than an asset to the system. And now, for the good stuff, this Thomas Malthus. He's referred to as the godfather of this overpopulation narrative. He was very clear that the poor were a burden on the system. And he was quoted as saying, instead of recommending cleanliness to the poor, we should encourage contrary habits. In our towns, we should make the streets narrower, crowd more people into the houses, and court the return of the plague. Malthus argued that since the peons, us, bred faster than food grows, the system should allow or even encourage disease and poor conditions to check their numbers. And some of the people that follow this have actually gone a little bit further. They suggest that a catastrophe, a famine or plague, or even war is a natural correction to bring the population back down. These people often view these catastrophes as an unfortunate but necessary for the planet, provided, of course, they don't happen to them. You don't want to damage their house in their gated community or damage their private jet. For the average person, though, this looks like planned neglect. If the system stops investing in health care for seniors or infrastructure for the poor, it's a passive way of letting the population correct itself. I have to say, I disagree with their point of view here. This world has more than enough resources to take care of a large population. The problem is we have people at the top who want to consume all the resources. Enough is never enough. I mean, how many yachts can you own? How many houses can you own? And actually, you know what I mean? I mean, some of these people have homes. I've heard several articles. They've had homes they've never actually been to. It doesn't make sense. There's enough for all of us if we're not greedy. That's my point. But in the current cultural model, or this cultural nudge, they're trying to shift us a certain direction here. The system makes devaluation feel like kindness, right? Flowers are waste. The narrative that traditional burials are environmentally selfish because they use land and resources that could be better used. Marketing human composting as the ultimate gift to the earth. Have you heard of this human composting thing? Yeah, it's there. There's like 16 states in the U.S. where it's legal now, and several other countries around the world. In many European cities, graves are now rented for 20 years. If you can't pay, they just simply remove your remains. This turns a house of eternity, as was there in Egypt, into a short-term lease. Doesn't sound very human-friendly, does it? Now I want to move to here the actual part where we don't value human life. I mean, if we don't value the human body and show any reverence, this kind of leads to exactly what I'm talking about here, I think. First thing I want to talk about is abortion. If you listen to my podcast, you'll know I did a whole podcast on abortion, and I don't want to go into that too deep. You guys know, if you listen to that, I don't do anything like a report on this from a religious or moral or legal point of view. Just simply state the facts. But just think about this. The best estimates we can have from the World Health Organization and other places that track this, there's anywhere from 55 to 75 million abortions a year around the world. Right now, abortion is the leading cause of death, surpassing heart disease and cancer combined. Now, I have a little story. I noticed this. I was doing some research, and I noticed that there's a law in the United States. It's been on the books for, I don't know, 50 years. It is illegal to destroy a wild bird's nest or their eggs within a certain time frame during the year, the normal nesting period, because they are considered embryo. And if we don't disturb them, they have a very high likelihood of hatching and therefore, continuing the species. This is a law, and it has a penalty that is associated with it. It's actually a federal felony. It can be a prison sentence up to 15 years and 15 years and $15,000 fine, I think it was. No, it wasn't quite that long a period. But anyway, it's a serious offense. That's my whole point. I don't remember all the details, but you can look it up if you want. You can Google it. You'll find it. But my point is, do we value the bird's embryos, wild bird embryos, more than we do our own? Because let's be real. If you're pregnant and that egg is fertilized and it implants properly in the uterus, it's in fact an embryo. If we don't do something to destroy it, it has every possibility of becoming a human, right? Okay, so I want to move on to Canada. Canada's kind of going in a different direction here. They are pushing very heavily on medical assisted suicide. They call it the MAID program, M-A-I-D. Right now in Canada, in 2026, there's approximately 1 out of every 20 deaths in Canada are through assisted suicide. The problem is these aren't just old people. Some of them are, but a lot of them, if they have any kind of handicap, different things like that, they give them that option. I mean, sometimes I'm thinking it might be pushed as a little bit more than an option because let me give you a story about that. I seen it recently a story I read online. There was a Miriam Lancaster, an 84-year-old retired teacher. She went into the emergency room there with some severe lower back pain. But before they even did any scans or even had a doctor look at her to diagnose what might be wrong, the nurse offered her this MAID, this medically assisted suicide. Oh, that'll take your pain away. And apparently the nurse mentioned that, hey, they were really short on bed space too. So, you're old, so, let's just take care of this the easy way. That's kind of the impression that I got. The funny thing is, when she did finally, of course she refused, when she did finally get assistance, turned out to be not too serious. A little medication and a few days rest, and she was up and going. The interesting thing is that a couple months later, she was in South America riding horseback up a volcano, seeing the sights. She was very healthy, but they immediately, before they even checked her out, offered this assisted suicide. I find that just horrible. And now, one other really thing that bothers me, this human composting. Now it's legal in 16 states here in the U.S. It's marketed as a way to save the soil. But functionally, it's a way for the state to manage remains without using land resources. Right? I just really have a hard time. The other thing that crossed my mind, of course, you guys know I ramble. I come up with weird ways of looking at things. But there used to be an old saying when people referred to when somebody passed up. They would say, oh, yeah, he's pushing up daisies. But this kind of brings a whole new meaning to that, doesn't it? Okay, so let's look at the economic and the math part of this. If you're a peon on public health plan, the system is incentivized to offer you an early out in Canada, right? If you tie up bed space in an ICU or something long term, that could cost them $100,000, $120,000 a year. But if they offer you this medically assisted suicide, in your best interest, of course, it costs them about $2,500. Here in America, we kind of face right now the opposite of that in a way. If you have a a good insurance plan, you know, the system is basically incentivized to keep you alive as long as possible, whatever it takes. Because now you are not a person really, you're a revenue source. There's a lot of money to be made there. I have had some personal experience with this. A couple of years ago, and my one brother, he passed away, of course, at this point, but he had colon cancer, stage 4. They kept promising that, oh, if we just do all this chemo, we do this radiation, everything like this, we could get you just, I mean, it's going to get you eventually, but we can give you a little bit of time of some, you know, so you can get around, maybe do things with your family. The odd part is he asked them right up front because he knew it was going to get him. He faced that fact. He said, could you just put in a colostomy bag? Because, of course, you know that he couldn't control his bowels. And he said, if you do that, then I'm still feeling pretty good. I mean, I can still get around. If I can do that, I can go take care of things with my family, do things with my grandkids. But they told him at that time that it couldn't be done. It was impossible. They'd have to do something to be able to shrink that tumor, get it down before they could do that. So he went through all of the chemo and all of the radiation, and he suffered horribly for about a year. Finally, it got so bad that the tumor had actually ruptured inside. And they went in and did surgery to just sort of kind of clean that stuff up. And then at that point, they put in a colostomy bag they said they couldn't do before. And then they sent him home on hospice to die. My point is, he suffered horribly for a year. I mean, horribly. I was with him a lot, taking him to his treatments. But the doctors and hospitals and tests and all of that, I think they made a good, easy $2.5 million. So I don't know. You tell me. The disparity, though, comes between the wealthy and the poor. You know, the wealthy will always have their houses of eternity and private care and their fancy funerals. But the poor are being nudged toward the composter and the needle because their lives have been appraised as a deficit on the national ledger. I want to just kind of put some numbers to a couple of these things real quick, and then we'll call this one good. In today's world, a funeral in the U.S. it costs probably around $10,000 to $12,000, but we can compost you for about $4,000. I'm not sure why it costs $4,000 to dump you in a barrel, throw a bunch of leaves and grass clippings and whatever else in there, and then sit you out in the sun someplace for about 6 weeks till you turn into compost. And then, of course, we have this population explosion, as Paul Ehrlich said. But you know what? The truth is, there's enough resources on this world. It's just that some people, a very select few, want to have it all. In the United States here, I've talked about this in another podcast. There is such a thing as VSL, what the government calls the value of statistical life. And in today's world, it just went up here recently, actually. It was like $13.7 million, but now they say it's $14.1 million is what you're worth. That's when they're evaluating a new bridge or a pedestrian bridge over a freeway so kids could get to school easier or whatever. They value, if they figured that they would save this many lives, then it's worth it. If it's not, then, it's not worth it at that point. The big issue is like in Canada, though, if you change this around, to them, if you're sick and you're in the hospital or you're disabled or whatever, they figure it's going to cost them $100,000 a year or so. But for $2,500 or less, they can offer you this easy way out, right? And of course, we mentioned Miriam Lancaster. You heard that story. I heard this lady speak on a radio talk show too. This lady was brilliant. For 84-year-old woman, she was brilliant. She spoke very well. She was But they wanted to bump her off because it was cheaper than trying to treat her. So this is my point. Then we come down to like Ted Turner, and these people want to just wipe us out. I don't get it. We have lost this value. I see this war over in Iran and things like that. I see Iran when Trump threatened to bomb them, or they wanted to have all their young people come and circle around the infrastructure. Their leadership apparently doesn't value life very much. Sometimes I'm not sure ours does either. I think we need to take a good hard look at this, though. I think this is not going to be a good path to go down for any of us. Anyway, I'll leave you with that today. I hope you enjoyed it. I thank you for joining me today. I hope you found it entertaining, educational, thought-provoking. Join me next time, won't you? I'm Craig Warren, and this has been the Ramblings of an Old Fart podcast. God bless and keep you till next time.